General Hospital spoilers. Maxie unmasked Nathan as a imposter in shocking identity twist.
Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The afternoon sun poured through Maxie's half-drawn shutters in General Hospital, forming long shadows on the spotless white sheets that covered her inert figure. She'd been in and out of consciousness for days, ever since waking from what seemed like an eternal sleep, her mind cloudy with bits of memories that didn't quite fit together. The doctors had defined it as a coma side effect, disorientation, emotional volatility, the sort of stuff that made everything seem strange. But Maxie Jones had always trusted her instincts, particularly when it came to the people she cared about the most. And right now, those instincts were screaming that there was something seriously wrong with the man they kept calling Nathan. It started little, as these things usually do in Port Charles. A lingering glance that lacked the comforting warmth she had known. He chose a term that Nathan would never have used, something clipped and precise in place of their free, friendly banter. Nathan West had been gone for 7 years, shot, mourned, and buried. His headstone remained in the cemetery, a somber reminder of the life they had built together before it all collapsed. Yet here he was, walking the hallways, claiming amnesia, as evidenced by DNA and fingerprints that the lab insisted matched exactly. The evidence indicated that he was real. Maxie's heart spoke otherwise. She initially tried to ignore her doubts. When he stood at her bedside when she awoke, his face was the same handsome one she had imagined in those foggy months of oblivion. She allowed herself to hope. He held her hand and whispered softly about how much he missed her, about the years lost in a nightmare he couldn't quite remember. Felicia, her mother, was ecstatic, arguing that miracles happened all the time in this town. Hadn't Britt Westbourne also returned from the dead? Why not Nathan? But Maxie noted the subtle things, like how he hesitated before caressing her cheek, as if he was testing the action rather than experiencing it intuitively. The disappearance of the old scar on his knuckle from a childhood injury, which he used to laugh about. And his laugh, it was close, but not quite right, lacking the little hitch that used to occur when he was truly entertained. The welcome home celebration was soon planned when the doctors cleared her for discharge. Friends and family gathered at the Metro Court, with balloons and streamers attempting to hide the underlying tension. Spinelli was there, hovering protectively, his gaze never leaving her. He had been her rock throughout the coma, sitting by her side and chatting to her even when she was unable to answer. He now watched Nathan with a calm skepticism, which he sought to conceal for her sake. Maxie smiled through the toasts and received hugs, but inside she was unraveling. Every time Nathan spoke to her, she felt a chill, as if she were standing too close to someone wearing a perfect mask. That night in her apartment she couldn't sleep. The room still smelled slightly of the lavender candles she used to light when Nathan was alive. Back when alive meant something specific. She strolled into the bedroom and opened drawers she hadn't touched in years. Old photographs, letters, and a little box containing wedding keepsakes. She took out a framed photo of the two of them on their honeymoon, with his arm around her waist and both of them laughing into the camera. She glanced at it for quite some time, comparing it to the man sleeping on the couch in the living room. The jawline was the same, and the eyes were the appropriate tint of blue. But something about the expression seemed prepared. Maxie decided to investigate further the next morning, while Nathan was out running errands that he would not define. She realized she shouldn't address him directly, yet. Port Charles had taught her that secrets were revealed slowly, often with disastrous consequences. She called Spinelli and asked him to meet her at Kelly's. Over coffee, she expressed her growing discomfort. Spinelli listened without interruption, his expression becoming more serious with each syllable. He admitted to running some basic checks on his own, nothing conclusive, but the time frame of Nathan's absence and return did not match up exactly. 7 years is a long time. People did change, but it seemed different. They began piecing together what little they could. Spinelli discovered old police files on Nathan's shooting, which were formally closed following Cesar Faison's death. The reports referred to a body, an autopsy, and a definite identification. Yet there was a man with the same DNA. Cloning, plastic surgery, some twisted phase-on experiment that never truly concluded. Maxie shivered at the possibilities. She remembered Peter's face, how he manipulated everyone and wore lies like second skin. Could this be another layer to the nightmare? The breakthrough occurred unexpectedly. Maxie was alone in the apartment again, looking through Nathan's few items he had brought back. A duffel bag with barely used clothes, a wallet with cards in his name, and a phone with contacts she didn't recognize. She paused before picking up the phone. It was locked, of course, but she recognized Nathan's old passcode. James, his birth name, which he rarely used but once told her felt like a piece of himself he kept hidden. She typed it in. The phone is unlocked. Scrolling through communications, she initially found nothing incriminating. Text messages with generic content, weather updates, and reminders for doctor's appointments. She then opened the photos. The majority were current photographs of Port Charles streets and the waterfront, which appeared benign. However, one folder was password protected individually. Her hands shook as she entered the same code. It works. The images inside made her stomach plummet. Pictures of Nathan. No, this man. Standing in front of a mirror and changing what appeared to be prosthetics on his face. Subtle alterations include a modest adjustment to the nose and cushioning along the jaw. Close-ups of scars that did not exist on Nathan's actual body. Then a sequence of photos of medical equipment, vials labeled with names she didn't know, and a surgical table in what appeared to be a makeshift clinic. One shot had a newspaper piece from years ago, marked in red. Detective Nathan West killed in the line of duty. Maxie's breath caught. She scrolled further. Emails were routed to himself, and he had chats with an unidentified person. Statements like, "The procedure is complete," memory overlay holding. Maxie must not suspect too soon. Her vision became blurry with tears. This was not Nathan. This was someone who went to great efforts to become him. She forwarded everything to Spinelli, her fingers trembling so much that she almost dropped the phone. He called back after a few minutes, his voice low and desperate. He was already tracking the IP addresses from the emails. They pointed to a facility outside of town with ties to ancient Cassadine research, cryogenics, identity reconstruction, and the kind of science that had tormented Port Charles for years. Spinelli encouraged her to be calm and not face the imposter alone. But Maxie could not wait. It was difficult to think of this stranger living in her home, sleeping on her couch, and pretending to be her child's father. When Nathan arrived that evening, bringing Pozzolo's takeout as if nothing had happened, Maxie waited in the living room. She had printed out the most damaging images and set them out on the coffee table like evidence in a trial. He froze in the doorway, the bag falling through his fingers. "Maxie," he began. His voice firm but his eyes filled with something sinister. "Don't," she said, her voice louder than her emotions. "Don't say my name like you have the right." He took a step closer, looking at the photographs. For a brief period, she wondered if he would deny everything, claiming forgery or manipulation. Instead he sighed, expressing no regret, merely slight displeasure. "You were always too smart for your own good," he added gently. "Who are you?" Maxie demanded, staying firm even as her heart raced. He gazed at her, really looked, and the mask loosened just enough to reveal the stranger beneath. Someone who sought a second opportunity. Nathan had everything. Love, family, and respect. Took it. The technology exists. Faces can be recreated. Memory can be implanted. I studied him for years and knew every aspect. I improved him beyond what he was previously. Maxie's thoughts raced. Peter August came to mind again, but this time felt colder and more deliberate. "Why Maxie? Why me?" "Because you loved him," he answered simply. "And loving me required loving him." It was a fantastic cover. Nobody questions a heartbroken widow who has been reunited with her miracle spouse. Tears flowed down her face, but she refused to wipe them away. "You killed him." The genuine Nathan. You led everyone to assume he had died. He shrugged. He was already gone. I just borrowed whatever was left. Spinelli, Dante, and Anna Devane all rushed in with their weapons drawn. Spinelli alerted them to the moment. Maxie sent the files. Handcuffs were placed around the imposter's wrists, and he made no resistance. He simply looked at Maxie once more. "You'll never forget me," he stated softly. "Because part of me is him now." Maxie turned away, unable to see as they led him out. The place felt emptier than ever, and the silence was deafening. She slumped into the couch, clutching an old photograph of herself and the real Nathan. 7 years of mourning, and now this fresh wound. Deeper, more threatening. She'd loved a ghost, mourned him, and nearly loved a falsehood. The truth quickly spread across Port Charles. Tests proved that the imposter's DNA was a match since it was created in that manner. Samples from Nathan's previous case files mixed with advanced reconstruction. The individual refused to reveal his name and instead used aliases that led nowhere. Investigators suspected links to defunct black market clinics, maybe including remnants of Faison's network or Cassadine experiments. But answers were sluggish to come. Maxie concentrated on her children and reconstructing the life she had nearly lost to lies. Spinelli remained near, his quiet presence providing a comfort she hadn't realized she needed so badly. She returned to Nathan's grave, tracing the letters of his name with her fingertips and whispering her apologies for disbelieving and almost believing the false. The encounter had a significant impact on her. It became more difficult to trust now. She questioned every reunion and miracle in a town built around them. However, she found strength in knowing she had seen through the falsehood. Her instincts, honed through years of pain and endurance, had saved her. Port Charles continued on as it usually did. New controversies emerged, and old rivals resurrected. But for Maxie, the scar remained. A reminder that while love and identities may be stolen, the truth of the heart was more difficult to falsify. She carried Nathan's memories not as a ghost, but as a light that no pretender could dim. And at quiet moments when the kids were asleep and the city hummed outside her window, she allowed herself to grieve properly. Not just for the man she had lost, but also for the part of herself that had been duped into believing again. It stung terribly. But pain, she realized, was proof that she was still alive. Still fighting. Still Maxie.